Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here. I've been ranking many kinds of animated villains from different studios. But let's change that up with Minions this time. Disney Minions to be exact. The House of Mouse's baddie sidekicks come in a wide variety of shapes and sizes. Some are loyal, others redeem themselves by the end. Some are snivelling, others are snarky. Disney is a major corporation that owns many properties, so to narrow things down, I'll only be counting Minions from movies made by their mainline animation studio and their straight-to-video company, Disney Toon. If a certain Minion doesn't end up on my list, then it's simply because I didn't find anything interesting to say about them. Let the ranking begin, folks. The Willy Brothers from Home on the Range. Alameda Slim's triplet nephews are dim-witted minions in his rustling plans, and oh man did Disney test our tolerance for how obnoxiously stupid their minions could be, with a lot of their comedy catering more to toddlers rather than the whole family.
I'd say these are the last of Big Mike Donald's herd.
Big MacDonald had a farm? E-I-E-I!
I think what bothers me the most about them though, is how the movie insultingly uses the trio as audience surrogates, so that Slim can condescendingly over-explain his villain scheme to us, almost like Disney didn't trust families to follow the plot along.
It's me. Hello. This here is the disguise I use to sneak into all them auctions and buy all the land.
However, I've actually grown to dislike Home on the Range less and less on each viewing. My grudge towards it has softened over the years, and I will say that I've scraped some praises for these brothers. Firstly, while a huge chunk of their humour falls flat for me, I admittedly did laugh at them at least twice on my newest viewing, so maybe they're not as unfunny as I've made them out to be.
1,435.
4,336.
Oh!
Secondly, I've noticed that when Bugs the Horse takes on our villains, the Willy Brothers do try to fight back. Sure, they're clumsy and sloppy fighters, but impressively they are quick to creatively use whatever is around them as weapons. Yeah, these three deserve to be as low as they are on my list, I just can't say that they have no merits at all. Snoops from The Rescuers. Snoops is a minion who works for the horrible Madame Medusa, a villain who is using little orphan girl Penny as a cave diver for a diamond quest. Admittedly, Snoops is one of the less memorable Disney minions out there. Heck, I would argue that he's maybe the weakest part of the original Rescuers movie. He's this timid nerd who doesn't really bring that much to the table as a baddie. He could have easily fit the sniffling sidekick trope, but the film doesn't really lean into his groveling that much. He's as vanilla as Disney minions come.
Oh, it's as simple as that, is it? Well, you're the boss.
Only getting cocky around smaller characters like Penny, but even Penny isn't that scared of him. That being said, there is a cruel malice to how he threatens to feed Penny's teddy to Medusa's gators.
Now you behave or I'll let Nero and Brutus have your old teddy bear.
Speaking of which, I would say that Snoops mainly falls flat because he's overshadowed so much by Neuro and Brutus, the superior villain sidekicks. It's hard to appreciate someone as vanilla as Snoops when Medusa's pets have twice the personality and menace. You could even argue that they make Snoops a little unnecessary. However, I would not say that Snoops is a full-on wimp. I'd argue that he becomes a speck more entertaining in the finale, when we get to Double Cross. Suddenly, this coward abandons all of his fear and sense as he races for the diamond against an armed Medusa.
My diamond!
By the film's end, this minion humiliatingly ends up in his boxers, but he's allowed to laugh at Medusa's defeat too. So I guess everyone wins except Medusa. Undertow from The Little Mermaid 2. Morgana's minion, Undertow, starts off as a very intimidating shark, but once Triton shrinks him down, he loses all of that menace. Now, that would be perfectly acceptable if his newfound insecurity was funny. But alas, it's not. Undertow spends so much of his runtime complaining and whining about being small that he becomes way more annoying than intended.
You had this all along! You could have changed me back! Why, I oughta...
Keep your scales on, small fry.
And when he's not whinging about his size, he's poutily arguing with Morgana about her sister complex.
I bet Ursula could have done it.
What was that you said?
Nothing. I'm just saying.
Like I said, he's lacking in threat, unless he's just a floating fin, so he never matches Flotsam and Jetsam's chilling aura. Plus, he doesn't have the charisma or showmanship to make for a compelling spokesperson for his sea witch.
And she can tell me what this locket means? Why it has my name on it?
Oh, sure, kid. Morgana's the best. She'll help you.
He's also a big step down from the first film's brilliant eels, and boy does it feel like a belated transformation back. Heck, it doesn't help that it's very short-lived. The only benefit to his resizing is that he gets to test the comic relief's courage, after both being cowards all this time. But these heroes have always felt like they're in a movie of their own. Undertow certainly had the potential to be a fun shark sidekick for Morgana, yet Disney sadly fails to make him entertaining as a comical minion and criminally underuse him as a predator. Keigo and Uto from Tarzan 2. These two mama's boys are a pair of dim-witted brothers who are helping their mum steal a home. In principle, they could have been intimidating as henchmen because their size and strength rivals Kerjak's, which sure, the film does show off sometimes. The problem is that the movie makes them so stupid, immature and childlike that their potential to be effective threats is frequently dampened. I'm sorry, but it's hard to feel scared of grown gorillas who are condescendingly babied by their mother, are scared of a fake monster, need bedtime stories to get to sleep, and hiccup when startled?
It isn't.
No. It isn't.
Even casting the timber voice Brad Garrett and Hellboy himself Ron Perlman as these two henchmen doesn't help. Yet these actors can pull off tough characters, but they're reading lowbrow material.
What has Mama Gunda told you about fighting?
But he was poking me. He was calling me banana brain. And I found a baby bird. And then I had
Sure, you could argue that Keigo and Uto are more comedic baddies, but they even fail greatly under that umbrella too, because I have to say that their brand of humor is quite insulting to children. There's a pandering nature to their slapstick and stupidity. Kids deserve way better comedy than this. Luckily, the finale lets these brothers get more aggressive towards our heroes as they embrace their brutish sides. But this does not last that long, because moments later, both our minions are quickly outwitted by Tarzan's traps. And embarrassingly, this isn't the first time that they've been easily tricked by a literal child in the film. Keigo and Uto had promising ingredients for great minions, but they're sadly villain sidekicks in Tarzan 2, an unnecessary Disney sequel that aspires to be nothing more than mediocre babysitter fodder. The Huntsman from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. This fellow is hired by the evil queen to murder Snow White, and he has to bring Snow's heart back as proof of her killing. Now yes, he's dressed and styled kind of silly for a henchman, but this fashion and haircut are authentic to men of the time. Plus, he's still a big burly guy. Laugh at the way he dresses all you want, but I wouldn't take him on in the ring. Heck, this normality for the period helps him to look less suspicious. Makes him look like a rural local rather than some kind of serial killer. When he has to get his hands bloody though, he backs out of the job once he actually meets the innocent and sweet Snow White, a kind princess with a big heart. The Huntsman seems genuinely distraught over the idea of killing this naive child.
She's mad, jealous of you. She'll stop at nothing.
But who?
The queen.
There's also a bravery to the fact that he risks his own life for Snow by tricking the queen with a pig's heart, daring to cross the powerful evil queen, who could kill him through either black magic or a royal execution. Yet he takes this chance, knowing that it could protect Snow, which is admirable.
The heart of a pig! Then I've been tricked.
Bruton from Dinosaur. Bruton is a tough iguanodon who acts as herd leader Crone's right-hand dino. I'll confess that it's hard to tell them apart from Crone, because they're both basically scary-looking iguanodons, and you have to really pay attention to see the differences. He also pretty much does the bare minimum expected of a minion, from being a megaphone for his commander's orders, to acting as a bodyguard for our villain. To be fair, he's certainly one of the more dominating Disney minions in their rogues gallery. He does stand out physically.
Unless you got a death wish, you and that little parasite better get moving!
What makes him truly special though, is where his character goes once Crone betrays him. You see, Bruton has been brainwashed to believe that the weak don't deserve to survive, and that you can only depend on yourself to get by. However, once rescued as a wounded victim, that philosophy is greatly challenged by Aladar's family, who detox his cult's teachings, helping him to replace his nihilism with optimism.
Why is he doing this? Pushing them on with false hope?
It's hope that's gotten us this far.
A sentiment that hits him so much that he ends up bravely sacrificing himself for the dinosaurs who saved him, showing that he now really understands our hero's idealistic values. It's beautiful stuff. Bruton is definitely obscured by better Disney minions, and he's not exactly a villain sidekick who comes to mind right away, but I do think that he's a great fable for the movie's messages of hopeful faith and unconditional compassion. The playing cards from Alice in Wonderland. This deck of soldiers are a unique staff of minions, particularly standing out because they're two-dimensional characters living in a 3D world. So much of their animation is not only fruitfully imaginative, but also astoundingly ahead of its time. Their flat, weightless bodies also help them to break reality in an already surreal world. This versatility really aids them as servants for the Queen, who cruelly demands a lot from them. They're quite slapsticky characters, but considering the trauma they face every day under the Red Queen, this clumsiness is most likely out of high anxiety. Heck, painting the roses red might be a catchy little ditty that'll never leave my head, but it does have a tinge of sadness and stress to it.
She'd raise a fuss, and each of us would quickly lose his head.
Goodness.
Although it is difficult to have complete pity for them, because they are happy to sell each other out like weasels, and are willing to pose as a serious military threat to a literal child. So yeah, I'm going to be a little restrained with my sympathy for them. Dijon, from DuckTales the movie Treasure of the Lost Lamp. This pickpocketing, money-obsessed thief is the sidekick to the evil sorcerer Murloc, a power-hungry warlock who is after a genie's lamp. Now yes, Dijon is very much a cartoony racist stereotype, one that was even dated in the year that the film came out, and I will admit that it's quite distracting how offensive he is as a problematic parody of Middle Easterns.
Oh, bad housekeeping! Looks like they have skipped the coop. It was not my fault, master. They did not get past Dijon.
That being said, he does a good job playing a fake tourist guide during Scrooge's hunt for the treasure. He fits in with the other guides quite naturally, and does a possible job hiding his true intentions while helping our heroes. Sure, he comes close to breaking character at one point, but he's luckily very fast at recalling himself.
Dijon!
What? I am not touching a thing. I am clean, innocent, and like a little baby goat.
After the show is over though, he just goes back to being a grovelling minion. Sure, the film has fun going ham on his cowardly begging and master-pleasing, but this trope rubs a different way when said minion is a racist caricature with a very exaggerated accent.
You will become more powerful than locomotive, more faster than Speedy Bull.
To be honest, the only particularly interesting thing about Dijon is that he ends up backstabbing his own master to steal the genie for himself, so that he can become the wealthy tycoon that he's always wanted to be. He suddenly develops this newfound cockiness and confidence, which is a huge shift from the jittery and nervous minion that he once was. Yeah, it doesn't last that long and he just goes back to his old ways in the end, but it's still fun that the film let a sneaky little sidekick become the temporary villain, all because Jean the Genie strategically knew that the alternative would be to let someone far, far more dangerous gain ultimate power. The 40 Thieves from Aladdin and the King of Thieves. These legendary bandits hide out in their own secret lair, only popping out when they have a heist to pull off. There's not exactly much strategy to their thieving though. The last word I'd use for their stealing methods is subtle. However, they do have a lot of flair and style as attackers. Each one skilled in a specific talent that they've mastered. They know what they're best at and use their shtick to storm the fortress. Even the royal guards find their presences to be hellishly imposing.
They fight like demons!
Worse than demons. These are the 40 Thieves!
As impressive as they are though, they become baby bunnies once they face the genie. Though, to be fair, any mortal man is going to feel outmatched by a cosmic entity, and at least these guys know their limits.
Kassim said nothing about facing the powers of a genie. Get the others out of here.
Seeing as there's a whopping 40 of these thieves, Disney chose to only develop a select few of them, but I would describe these 4 or 5 as flat caricatures, like the dumb guy, the triplets, and the token Asian. I'd say that the 40 Thieves are more compelling as a community than as standalone characters. This tight-knit secret club of bandits, so good at what they do that they elude Agrabah's authority.
So you are the one with information about the 40 Thieves?
What would you say if I handed you the King of Thieves?
I'd say what's in it for you.
There is a street-smart emotional intelligence to the most loyal of these thieves too, because when our villain Saluk convinces them that their leader Kassim has ratted the team out, they are very quick to doubt such a claim, trusting their guts over Saluk's charisma.
You have always hated the king. Why should we believe you?
Saluk has to put on a big song and dance to twist their arms, and to be fair, I totally buy that a catchy villain number would get these crooks to switch teams.
Are you in or out? If
you're with me, give a shout.
Fortunately though, their awful betrayal of Kasim leads to a very ironic minion defeat for a bunch of thieves. Chief, from The Fox and the Hound. Hunter Amos Slade's Irish Wolfhound Chief is a grumpy old dog. He tries to seem like a wise and tough hunting veteran, but he clearly has a soft side deep down, because he ends up raising Slade's new hunting pup, Copper, becoming kind of like a big brother to him.
Let's have some fun.
Oh, lay off, Copper, you overgrown pup, you.
The generational gap between them is obvious, and you can tell that Copper's youth challenges Chief's ego. Chief even underestimates the puppy's abilities as a hunter and tracker. Sure, Copper is young and has a lot to learn, but he's already an amazing smeller for his age.
Something I never smelled before, Chief.
Let me see.
It's quite entertaining seeing the once proud Chief realizing how dated he really is, once Copper shows up his big brother as the next generation of hunting dogs. As old as Chief is, he's still a fierce canine that you don't want to mess with. Every time Todd the Fox wakes Chief up, it's quite scary how dang deranged he gets. Made all the more intimidating when you remember that he's been raised to thirst for fox blood. However, Chief does later get injured in one chase against Todd, and he relishes in the pampering. The codger even has the cheek to play up the damage done.
Chief, get back in there before I break your other leg.
Although it's Chief's injury that sparks our villain and Copper to feel very entitled for revenge. So even though Chief has bowed out of the story by the finale, you can credit his fall for A. Slade's license to go off the rails, B. Copper's newfound grudge towards his childhood best friend.
Todd, if it's the last thing I do, I'll get you for this.
Chief doesn't exactly fit the usual Disney minion template, but I think that's what's so great about him. He's just an old hunting dog getting by in his later years, who happens to be owned by a geezer with issues. Tank, from an extremely goofy movie. Tank is the right-hand man to the snobby Bradley Uppercrust III, leader of the Gamma Fraternity, who are the rivals of Max Goof's team. He's noticeably large in stature for a college-age student, which not only makes him stick out from his classmates, but also helps him to work as the intimidating brawn to Bradley's witty slyness. I mean, Brad is a spindly fellow and not exactly a scary-looking villain, but Tank compensates for that greatly as a college bully. Tank clearly loves being second in command, and you can tell that he feels proud to be a Gamma, which explains why he's so loyal to Bradley. Whether he's hyping up Max's opportunity to join the Gammas at the film's start,
welcome aboard, little Tank. Your class, the high kind.
Or being a key player in Brad's cheating tactics. Heck, if you insult Brad, you can bet the Tank will have something to say.
What's wrong, Brad? Don't you dare call me that.
Yeah, don't forget, he's the King Buster.
I really love voice actor Brad Garrett's touches to the character the most though. From his tough guy New Yorkian accent that gives Tank this street smart attitude, to the way that he endearingly calls everyone baby. It's such a memorable voice.
Just like we always do.
It's a little insurance, baby, with no deductible.
Now, I mentioned how much being a Gamma means to Tank, and how that sense of belonging defines him. Well, that actually plays into his own redemption. You see, in the finale, Bradley proves that he cares more about winning than his fellow Gammas, only for Goofy and Max to save Tank themselves, teaching Tank that he was on the wrong side all along, and that our heroes are better people than his supposed best friend. Tank is actually humbled by the Goofs after bullying them all this time.
That's some kid you got there.
Oh, and I can't begin to describe the euphoric pleasure that I get every single time I watch the obnoxiously smarmy Brad being destroyed by the right-hand man that he betrayed. I could watch this villain defeat on repeat all day.
Time to get on the last jet to nowhere. To nowhere. To nowhere. To nowhere.
Trigger and Nutsy from Robin Hood. The vultures that work for the Sheriff of Nottingham are drastically different from each other. While Trigger is a serious and committed henchman, Nutsy is quite the quirky goofball. Both of these strong personalities hilariously clash with the headstrong sheriff. Nutsy annoys the sheriff just by being his dim-witted self, whether he's getting himself replaced by Robin Hood, or loudly announcing the time like a clock with wings.
1 o'clock and all's well.
And while Trigger does take his duty very seriously, he's also pretty clumsy with his crossbow.
The safety's on old Betsy.
What in tarnation you trying to do, you bird brain?
Seeing as a hanging is in the works, their comedy setup ends up fitting the very exact definition of gallows humour. Like, you can't get a more literal example of it.
Well, Sheriff, don't you reckon we'd ought to give that there trap door a test?
As wild as these minions' personalities are, the two of them can be helpful at assisting their boss. Sure, they're just following orders, but we never see them protesting against any of the fascism, so they'll happily end up doing pretty cruel things. Most notably, helping the sheriff arrest poor Friar Tuck, in a scene that's rather hard to watch.
You're under arrest for high treason to the crown.
Now, sure, these minions don't face any harsh consequences, and I wish they did, but their clumsiness is a great bookend to the film, so I'll take that. Diablo from Sleeping Beauty. Maleficent's pet raven is a very faithful bird. Disney certainly took creative liberties, because he's not that accurate to real ravens, but it's still a terrifically gothic and crooked variant design, with a lot of Poe-esque personality. While Maleficent sneers at other humans and abuses her own henchmen, she's actually very respectful and loving towards her assistant bird. Which makes sense when he's a very reliable pet who dearly idolizes his owner. He not only gives the Mistress of Evil a little extra menace just by perching on her, but also puts 100% into all of his assigned tasks, his flight ability and bird calls making for highly useful skills, whether he needs to scour the forest for Princess Aurora, or sound an alarm when prisoners escape Mal's dungeon. He'll also go the extra mile too. Like when he finds the princess, he sneakily collects info on the fairy's plans. Despite kind of being a tiny fella, he has a lot of cocky sureness in himself, and loves to grin with a smug pride. However, once a fairy corners him, he's suddenly exposed as a coward. That said, this minion defeat really brings out Mal's grieving side, and this makes things more personal for the sorceress. Neuro and Brutus from The Rescuers. Medusa's pet gators are a pair of scaly menaces that are very pampered by their owner. In Medusa's eyes, they can do no wrong. More importantly though, they explain why the rescuers are needed on the scene. You see, no matter how many times Penny tries to escape, Neuro and Brutus snap her back up, so audiences can't just expect Penny to simply run away. Heck, these gators seem to enjoy proudly retrieving her every time.
Nero, don't you dare get my teddy bear wet.
On top of this, they're highly intimidating reptiles. Not only do they have sharp, long jaws, but their eyes are also scarily piercing, especially from a mouse's perspective. Oh, and their tracking skills, as shown by their perfect penny catching record, are impeccable. A skill that's especially handy when Bianca's perfume gives off a strong sweet scent, making our heroes easy prey for these swamp demons. Saying all this though, Neuro and Brutus aren't that serious as minions. In all honesty, they're quite goofy as predators, and will happily play with their potential food for fun. But their humour never waters down their threat, mainly because their comedy is often at the expense of their prey. Now, I mentioned that Medusa spoils them rotten, but that's not entirely true. She can lose her temper at them, and she even later ends up degradingly using them like water skis. All this animal abuse builds up while she forgets that her pets are natural predators. Only for our villain to go out as delicious gator chow. Just imagine being such a horrible person that your own pets are willing to have you for dinner. Rico from Home on the Range. This badass bounty hunter is on a quest to bag the outlaw Alameda Slim, with his biggest fan, Buck the Horse, as his trusty steed. However, we later learn that he's actually working for Slim as a henchman. Now, there aren't exactly any creative clues for Rico's twist villainy, but there's also nothing before the reveal that could contradict said twist either. He's so mysterious that we don't know who he really is, except that he's a slick rider driven by bounty rewards.
Where's Where's my money?
Sure, Buck hypes him up as a hero, but there's very little to show that he's nabbing outlaws for anything but riches. At the same time, he's done fantastic at moonlighting for Slim, not only committing to his bounty hunting success to gain the sheriff's trust, but also making sure that other hunters aren't on Slim's track.
If you'd just been a second earlier, you'd have had that rustler dead to rights. You boys see anything before I got here?
While I do find Bug to be a very annoying character, I think that the horse's relationship with Rico is a decent arc, because it teaches kids to be very careful of who you pick to be your hero, as celebrities can be deceptive to the public.
Mr. Weasley, let me present the most traitorous, double-crossing gun for hire that I've ever had the pleasure to call partner, Rico.
You're too kind, boss.
Heck, Rico's twist villainy is actually his own downfall, because Buck ends up feeling so dejected that he betrays Rico, realizing that the cows he's been mocking are the real Western heroes. Rico really chose the wrong horse to be his criminal underworld sidekick. Oh, and dang is it fun seeing the oh so mysterious and cool Rico humiliated by farm animals of all things.
Mother of mercy, is this the end of Rico?
Lefu from Beauty and the Beast. Lefu really reminds me of a boxing coach, because his whole shtick is to manage Gaston's brand and confidence, hyping his friend up as the greatest badass to ever live. Even when Gaston gets himself down in the dumps, Lefu is there to help him back in the ring.
Nothing helps. I'm disgraced.
Who, you? Never. Gaston, you've got to pull yourself together.
It's maybe puzzling that he's this devoted, because Gaston is a terrible role model who keeps abusing Lefu, so much so that Lefu has become desensitized to all the punches. Then again, today's climate has shown that deeply insecure men will often unhealthily idolize toxic fellas, because they want to be just like them.
Every guy here'd love to be you, Gaston, even when taking your lumps.
Whatever Gaston needs for his wicked plan to make Belle his wife, Lefu hops on board as a willing cog in the machine. Heck, for a guy with low self-esteem, he can really get a band playing or rile up a whole town into an angry mob. So there's got to be some confidence in him deep down.
Maurice, tell us again, old man, just how big was the beast?
There's clearly some homoerotic undertones going on between Gaston and Lefu. Repressed sexualities on both ends. A theory that the underwhelming live-action remake wanted to cover, but only dipped its toes in the shallow end of the queer pool. Although you can tell that Lefu is onto the downsides of being Gaston's lackey. A part of him maybe knows that he's worshipping the wrong man, because there are times where he's obviously annoyed at what he has to do, and he even takes a jab at Gaston in one scene.
Belle would do anything to keep him from being locked up.
Yeah, even marry him.
I'll confess that Lefu isn't my favourite snivelling sidekick type of Disney minion, but he's still a snappy satire of low-esteemed men's obsession with idolising narcissists. Lieutenant Clarabelle from Mickey, Donald and Goofy and the Three Musketeers. It's actually quite awesome that this movie cast Clarabelle, one of the less popular Disney Shorts characters, in a pretty important role, mind you, serving as Pete's lieutenant in his scheme to overthrow Minnie. She's far more competent than Pete's other minions, the Beagle Boys, and even gets to punish her co-minions whenever they screw up.
Throw these clowns into the pit!
Oui, la pit!
No,
anything but la pit! Bon voyage, losers.
But she also affectionately dries them off when they get wet later. It's a complicated relationship. Her major task in the film, though, is to get rid of Musketeer Goofy, which, to be fair, she does an expert job at. First, she pulls off a decent Mickey Mouse decoy to trick Goofster.
Attention, Musketeer Goofy!
Mickey, is that you?
Yes, Musketeer Goofy, I am in need of your assistance.
Then she manically chains him up, very effectively, in a bid to drown him alive. Even creepier, the dumping river itself has other bodies. So maybe this is not Clarabelle's first murder? Yikes. Clarabelle is a successful and sadistic villain henchwoman who makes most Disney minions look pathetic. Then things take a surprising twist, when Goofy becomes infatuated with the cow, thus inspiring a terrific back and forth seduction scene, with Clarabelle wrestling over her bloodlust for Goofy and our hero's natural romantic charms, all to the melody of Carmen.
Your chains of love now hold me tight. Your bovine beauty makes my heart take flight.
It's Goofy. So I 100% believe that his wholesomeness could turn a villain minion into putty. Extremely goofy movie showed that he certainly had game with the ladies.
You don't have much time. Your friend Mickey is in dire peril.
While it is cute and even funny that these two become a couple, it's tricky to find it completely sweet when you remember all the red flags of Clarabelle. Oh dear. The Beagle Boys, from Mickey, Donald and Goofy and the Three Musketeers. Pete's minions in this movie are basically a major improvement on Home and the Ranger's Willy Brothers, a trio of dim-witted villain sidekicks who are too dumb to function. Except these guys are actually consistently hilarious, with all of their gags being in spirit with classic Disney short comedies.
On guard!
On guard? French words make me mad!
As moronic as they are, they can be quite creative with their weapons, whether it's in the name of the film's humour, or to show how cartoonily dangerous they are as minions. I think that Pete puts them to best use in the finale, with one Beagle being utilised as a Minnie Mouse decoy. Sure, it's all kind of a rehash of The Great Mouse Detective, but the film finds its own spin on the scheme by going for drag comedy over robot royalty.
My duties have become too overwhelming for a delicate flower such as myself.
The most valuable purpose for the Beagles, though, is how they truly test our underdog heroes, who each have their own flaws to overcome to prove themselves. It's like the Beagles are the anti-doppelgangers to Mickey, Donald and Goofy. I've always found Mickey's Three Musketeers to be an underrated gem, and the Beagle Boys are one of many reasons why it excels as a comedy.
Those three chowderheads have proven tougher than I thought.
Yeah? So?
So quit hanging around.
Wiggins from Pocahontas. This chipper henchman to the evil Governor Ratcliffe is strangely upbeat for a minion. It's like he enjoys being a servant, as if his only passion is to be at the governor's beck and call. To be fair, he's a pretty dang great butler. Serving and assisting comes naturally to him, and is quite impressive. Whether he's carrying an umbrella and a lantern for Ratcliffe during a sea storm, or managing to applaud a Ratcliffe speech to his men while bathing his boss's dog, he is good.
Dispose of this.
Who's a good doggy? Who's a good doggy?
Ratcliffe is considered to be one of the most queer-coded villains of Disney, so many fans have theorized that this minion's attentiveness comes from a romantic place. And you know what? Yeah, Wiggins is totally Ratcliffe the Bear's twink boyfriend.
I've never been popular, man.
I like you.
While Wiggins doesn't get that involved in the film's main plot, he's more morally conscious than his colonizing boss, to almost meta levels.
Wiggins, why do you think those insolent heathens attacked us?
Because we invaded their land and cut down their trees and dug up their earth.
And he's always there to be the comic relief for any villain scenes. I actually found his comical quips and skits to be a highlight of this mediocre movie.
Do you think we'll meet some savages?
If we do, we shall be sure to give them a proper English greeting.
Oh, gift baskets.
Lucifer from the Cinderella trilogy. Lady Germain's pamper pet feline is a character who is so evil that even crazy cat hoarders would hate him. There's not a cute bone in his body. He lives to cause trouble for Cinders and her animal friends, all while grinning a smile so obnoxiously smug that you'll boil red.
Bruno!
Not even the pure-hearted and optimistic Cinderella can find a positive thing to say about this terrible cat.
Lucifer has his good points, too. For one thing, he...
While I will admit that his chases with the mice can drag on, he makes for a solid obstacle against the rodents. Lady Germain is already a frustratingly horrible stepmother, but Lucifer makes us even saltier with his efforts to help his mistress. I've never wanted to kick a cat harder.
You got the key. How did you ever manage to... Lucifer! Let him go, Lucifer!
In Cinderella 2, we get a subplot about Lucifer agreeing to let the mice give him a makeover so that he can win the attention of the palace's stuck-up cat. Sure, it's fun seeing this more romantic side to him, all while he bonds with his own prey and becomes quite the tidy gentleman.
Lucifer!
But this does not last long, and things soon return to normal by the end. So I can't really say that it's a plot, that pushes the franchise forward in any way. It's just an amusing little comical tale that only teases a redemption. Cinderella 3, the better sequel, uses Lucifer sparingly, but when it does cast him in a scene, he can steal the show, mainly because he's caught in the middle of a magic wand conspiracy and frequently becomes a victim to the hijinks. The highlight being when Tremaine transforms him into an uncanny human coach driver who maniacally drives Cinders to a doom in a mutated and warped version of a fairy tale night. To me, this is peak Lucifer, a nightmarish grinning monster who relishes in others' suffering. Drizella from the Cinderella trilogy. Cinder's stepsister, much like Anastasia, is a nasty and spoilt brat who abuses Cinder's forced servitude and sneers at her sister for wanting to go to the ball.
I'd be honored, Your Highness. Would you mind holding my broom?
Her worst moment being when she works with Anastasia to violently rip apart Cinderella's mouse-made dress. A truly and deeply traumatizing scene.
Oh, God, please.
Girls.
However, she's also the product of Tremaine's cold, tyrannical style of parenting, constantly pressuring her daughters to be prim and perfect so that she can marry them into a powerful family. A hard challenge for Drizella when she's such a goofy and bad-tempered woman.
You clumsy!
Cinderella 2 leaned way more into the strict and demanding pressures of being Tremaine's daughter, something that Drizella adapts to sort of easily, despite her immaturity, but Anastasia longs for real intimacy. Drizella doesn't understand the appeal of true love though, so she spends the whole of Cinderella 2 backing up her mother like a good minion.
Everything in this shop is inferior.
You could build a house out of these bricks!
However, at the end of the story, we get a faint glimpse into another side of Drizella, as she draws curiosity and intrigue towards Anastasia's newfound romance, showing a subtle chance of Drizella breaking from her mother's poison. In Cinderella 3, Drizella plays second fiddle to her sister, because Tremaine has chosen Anastasia as the pawn in her conspiracy to change time. This could have led to Drizella being dramatically overshadowed, but I would say that she's neither underused or overused. She's at her best when the film just lets her be the snarky, bitter sister, here to roast Anastasia or make sassy quips while watching the scheme being executed. It's a role that she's hilarious at playing, and her dry humour adds some much needed comic relief to the conspiracy's tension.
Let's make a run for it while we can.
I really like how the Cinderella sequels let Drizella be her own character, because it shows how our life choices and experiences can dictate the people we become. Drizella ends up symbolizing the kind of wicked person that Anastasia could have grown into, if she never developed as a character.
Nice try, but we won!
You won? What do you mean?
Nothing.
Smee from the Peter Pan movies. In Peter Pan, Smee is far from your archetypal pirate. He's a soft-spoken and sensitive old man, the kind of older gentleman that you'd find in a British retirement home. Having Smee break all the cliches of pirates is both strangely charming and a perfect ingredient for comedy magic. He's working for and with utter barbarians, but he treats the ship like a cottage, and he's tasked at hand like mundane domestic chores.
3 degrees west. 3 degrees west. Steady now! Steady!
However, it's his brilliantly developed relationship with Hook that makes Smee memorable. These two are like an old married couple. It's kind of adorable how Smee tends to his captain and protects Hook from the crocodile that terrorizes him.
Here now, shame on you, upsetting the poor captain. There'll be no handouts today.
When Smee isn't being wholesome, he's cracking us up by driving his darling Hook up the wall. The vaudevillian comedy dynamic between these two always puts me in stitches.
Now let me see, where was I?
Oh dear, Captain Hook. Shooting a man in the middle of his cadenza? It ain't good form, you know.
Smee did come back for the Peter Pan sequel, Return to Neverland, but I'll admit that there's not much to really discuss about his appearance. Don't get me wrong, he's his usual endearing self, and Jeff Bennett's Bill Thompson impression is eerily spot on.
Oh, there. He's just a playful little sea urchin is all.
I swear, Smee, this is propelling me to delirium.
But he pretty much recycles the same beats as the original. and seems to have less screen time too, so I was kind of stumped for notes when watching the sequel. That is not a complaint or anything, I'm just being honest. Despite this, Smee is still a very lovable Disney minion, who happens to have one of the best villain and sidekick dynamics in Disney history. Sour Bill from Wreck-It Ralph. Bill is the royal assistant to King Candy, leader of the Sugar Rush racing game. Bill is very faithful to his boss, all while not knowing that he's really rejected video game character Turbo. For a Candy World character, Sour Bill is quite a dour and bitter guy, which isn't great when his job requires royal announcements.
All hail our rightful ruler, King Candy.
Hello, my loyal subjects!
Bill's sourness is a fantastic contrast against the wacky and colourful King Candy. While His Highness chews the scenery and channels Mad Hatter energy, Bill just plods along next to him. However, I would say it's unfair to say that Sour Bill is emotionless or stoic. He's quite cute for a grumpy weirdo, and the faces he pulls are surprisingly expressive.
I'll lick you.
You wouldn't.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, that's like sandpaper.
He's got this everyman charm to him. He's just this average Joe who has pride in his game. Heck, when King Candy lets Bill take charge of the castle at one point, his minion doesn't let the power go to his head or anything. He actually treats the temporary position with the utmost responsibility.
Wreck-It Ralph.
Yes, that's him.
Should've locked him up when we had the chance.
Locked him up?
Not making the same mistake with you.
We even kind of feel sorry for his loss of memories. He seems genuinely guilty that he's forgotten what Candy has erased. So it's a breather to finally see the royally devoted Bill regaining his past at long last, and commit his loyalty to the real queen by the end. Sir Hiss from Robin Hood. Hiss is a snake who can hypnotize anyone he wants, and he's used this power to help Prince John climb the royal ladder.
We're in this plot together, if you don't mind my saying so. And remember, it was your idea. I hypnotized him and... I know.
While the two of them are very tight as a team, they're quite the bickering pair. All Hiss wants to do is be a loyal minion by serving as His Majesty's voice of reason, but John's galactic-sized ego always gets in the way. We get to laugh at Hiss's pedantic nagging winding up the high-strung prince, only for the snake to always get the last laugh once reality itself crashes into His Highness.
Robbed! I've been robbed! Hiss! You're never around when I need you! I've been robbed.
Of course you've been robbed!
Hiss is trying his very hardest to support this bratty villain, but he just faces punishment or pain for having the gall to challenge the prince.
Enough! Hiss, you deliberately dodged.
But...
I do quite like that he gets to share a moment with the sheriff too, a fellow underling of the tyrannical John, as they bond over singing a local protest song together, showing that even John's own accomplices don't respect him.
Too late to be known as John the First, he's sure to be known as John the Worst. How about that?
That's PJ to a T.
By the finale, John's Robin Hood hunt has escalated way too much, and it's actually quite satisfying hearing his own minion point out how much he's crapped up, especially after the snake spent the whole film trying to be a good villain advisor.
Well, I tried to tell you, but no, you wouldn't listen. Your traps just never work. And now, look what you've done to your mother's castle.
In the end, Hiss is deservedly arrested. I mean, he's just as guilty as the prince, so good on the film for punishing him. I do think that a lot more Disney minions deserve equal comeuppances. So we're halfway through my list, and I really hope you're enjoying it. Who is your favourite Disney minion and why? Comment with your answer below. Anyway, let's keep rolling forward. Helga Sinclair from Atlantis the Lost Empire. Helga is as lethal as she is beautiful, a fierce lieutenant with a military mindset that never seems to switch off. Second in command to villain Rourke, she sticks to her upper-ranking officer's orders, while also employing rules instilled into her from her years of service.
What is this?
That would be lettuce.
Lettuce? Lettuce?
It's a vegetable cookie. The men need the 4 basic food groups.
She may be a secondary antagonist, but she could be just as brutal and cruel as her boss. It's almost like she's Rourke's best weapon in this mission. There are glimpses into her having a conscience, but I wouldn't say that the film commits to her sentimental side much.
That crystal is the only thing keeping these people alive. You take that away and they'll die.
Well, that changes things. Helga, what do you think?
Knowing that, I'd double the price.
I was thinking triple.
Although it's interesting that she seems the most emotionally stirred when her fellow soldiers are killed in action, which speaks volumes for how much the military means to her. It's the film's climax that really lets her stretch her army muscles. She's totally in the zone on the battlefield, and her instincts are quite impressive.
Looks like somebody's working overtime.
In a twist ending though, Rourke betrays his minion, which must really irk Helga when she clearly respected her commander. However, she's allowed to keep her dignity as a soldier by fighting back aggressively until her last breath.
You said we were in this together!
Yeah, she's a terrible colonizing henchwoman, but it's hard to deny her badassery.
Nothing personal.
Leroy from Leroy and Stitch. This is an evil clone of Stitch who works for the terrible Dr. Hamsterville. While he's not exactly an original design for a jumper experiment, because he's basically a red Stitch, he still makes for a fun rival for our blue fluffy hero. All because his powers and abilities are on par with Stitch. Any fight between these two could go either way, all thanks to their equal level of skill and strength.
Noah, Kristoff!
I'd also say that the choice to make Leroy red works for film symbolism, because that was the exact colour that Lilo used for Stitch's bad ratio in the first film. So it's kind of like Stitch's fighting his old self, the Stitch that he had to battle internally after being invented for evil. However, I would not say that Leroy is as creative or intelligent as Stitch. He has instinctive moments, but on the whole, he's pretty much a tough goon who often needs his boss to give him instructions, which isn't a bad thing, because there's a humorous charm to Leroy's mindlessness.
Say it. Are you okay?
Hamsterfield takes great advantage of Leroy as a minion. Remember, Stitch's powers are not limited to just super strength. Like, Leroy gets to transform into a fake Stitch in order for Hamsterfield to sneak onto the big red battleship.
Captain Stitch, our orders are to return the prisoner to asteroid K-37. Why are we setting a course for Turo?
Turo nala Krista!
And he also uses his speediness to collect every single cousin in Hawaii in a day. It's important to remember too that Leroy is part of a whole clone army, which sure go unused for most of the film, but once Hamsterville pits his Leroys against every cousin, we not only get to see the immense scale of said clone army, who maybe outnumber Stitch's cousins, but also what the red little gremlins can do on a battlefield.
There's too many of them!
Luckily, it was cleverly hinted earlier in the film that Leroy's genes will have a weakness to Elvis music, and we get one hell of a silly but fun minion defeat because of this. 5. From Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas. This Piccolo once served as a castle musician, and he's desperate to be noticed as a performer. The evil Forte takes advantage of this neediness by offering a solo piece to the little guy, in trade for helping the maestro split up Beast and Belle. 5 is a chipper and naive fellow who genuinely admires our villain's musical skills. He's a fan. He's so innocent and cute that a part of us kind of wants him to follow his dream of becoming a solo musician.
I'd do anything for a solo.
Yes.
That being said, he's still a loyal minion, and a rather good one at that. Forte's organ transformation has made it impossible for him to leave his spot. So, 5 pretty much becomes the Crooked Maestro's arms and legs, serving as our villain's sneaky spy, news messenger, physical henchman, and even pacer for his thoughts.
Pay attention. I need you to pace when I think. The girl is evil, I tell you. She pulls him from my grasp.
This Piccolo's obsession with finding a musical spotlight could potentially push him down the same road that Forte has gone. If 5 continues to abandon his morals in favour of potential success, he'll gradually become just as entitled, cruel, and miserable as his boss. Luckily, 5 does have a good heart deep down, and we get a decently executed redemption arc. Not only does Belle's endearing natural charm make 5 see how lovely this scheme's victim really is.
I want you to follow her. Make sure they don't come back.
Oh, yeah, but, Maestro, she's so nice.
But after 5 almost accidentally kills Sweet Belle, the Piccolo gets a wake-up call that he really needs. Reality hits him like a ton of bricks, and he realizes how dangerous his minion role is.
What have I done? It's all my fault.
We all share some blame, mon ami.
He's been brainwashed to believe The music's dreams can only be achieved at the expense of others, all while his boss's solo piece offers exposed as a blank, a page that's as empty as the maestro's good intentions. This new sense of clarity pushes the tiny guy to be a brave Piccolo.
What do you think you're doing?
Don't you see, Five? They can't fall in love if they're dead.
I'll tell you what I see. A big old windbag!
After Forte is defeated, Fife is deservedly rewarded with his very own solo at last, and his upbeat brand of music totally fits the Prince and Princess's party vibe. Fife didn't need Forte to reach his dreams, just the ambition and heart to stand out. Fife really is a lovely little cinnamon roll, and one of the only positives in this uninspired festive Disney sequel. Creeper. From the Black Cauldron, the Horned King's minion is a grovelling little freak, who is a perfect example of the snivelling sidekick trope I've grown to appreciate when movies actually have fun with the cliché. The Horned King is already one of the scariest animated villains ever, but Creeper's presence backs up that menace fantastically, just by showing how much trauma and fear that the king can put folks through, even if they're his most loyal servant.
I caught him, Your Majesty! I caught the boy!
But you let the pig go, didn't you?
It wasn't my fault.
The lengths that Creeper goes to please his master and the panic he feels when he fails his majesty really hammer in how much of a terrifying antagonist he is.
It wasn't my fault. That's it. That's it. I always get blamed for these things.
I wouldn't say I feel sorry for him though. He has a very annoying laugh and often rejoices in our heroes losing. You kind of want to choke him yourself sometimes.
He'd come for the Black Cauldron, didn't you? Good. Then climbing? It will only cost you your life.
However, as snivelly as Creeper is, even he's allowed to be threatening at times, and I can imagine small kids being afraid of him. Heck, as much as people don't respect the Scroat, he's got a lot of command as the Horned King's right-hand goblin.
Don't stop, you weakling! Put some muscle into it!
When the Horned King is finally defeated, I love how Creeper reacts with a range of emotions, going from sad grief to a happy celebration over his abuser's death. The end of an abusive relationship can often result in complicated feelings, and Creeper goes through that cycle.
Oh, sire. He's gone. He's gone. He's gone.
Abysmal from The Return of Jafar. Abyss is the bandit who becomes Genie Jafar's master in the first Aladdin sequel. He's basically a slightly less offensive version of Dijon, with voice actor Jason Alexander channeling his George Costanza character, rather than putting on a cringe accent.
Why, this is my bonus for being your beloved leader. This and that are my beloved leader bonus.
Return of Jafar is a Disney sequel that's really grown on me recently, and I would credit this minion for one reason why. Abysmal is very different to conventional villain sidekicks because he has a certain level of power over Jafar. Jafar needs this minion to use their third wish to set the evil sorcerer free. The power dynamic between villain and sidekick in this film is entertainingly skewed. Jafar might have a lot of menace and cosmic power, but Abysmal is technically still his genie master, so Jafar has to be creative with any wishes that the bandit makes.
Your wish is my command.
These two do share a common ground though. Both crooks hold a mutual personal spite against Aladdin.
Aladdin?
Aladdin? I want revenge on him too!
Hence why they can come together for a revenge scheme. However, Abysmal is an impatient man, so Jafar has to keep the bandit on a leash, or his vengeance conspiracy will crack apart.
Look, you little...
My dear Abysmal, if you remember the plan, it is not yet time for the boy to meet his end.
It's especially fun seeing this relationship reach its end, because now we get to see how much they really trust each other, as the balance of power is ultimately tested. Will Abysmal bend for Jafar? And how will Jafar have the upper hand as a slave? The tension could cut through steel.
The more pressing question is, how will you stay alive if you don't?
But you said genies can't kill. You said that.
You'd be surprised what you can live through.
Lawrence from The Princess and the Frog. Larry is the put-upon servant of Prince Naveen, who is greatly underappreciated and ignored by His Majesty. When we first meet Lawrence, we actually find ourselves siding with him, because he is the voice of reason that this young, reckless prince needs.
At this point, you have two choices. Woo and marry a rich young lady, or get a job.
However, once our villain Dr. Facilier taps into Larry's insecurities and offers him a life that he's always envied, Larry switches from loyal butler to co-conspirator in a flash, agreeing to pretend to be Naveen, while the real prince has been turned into a frog, which shows how fragile his ego really is behind his wise judgment of others. While he may be a whiny, spineless pushover, Disney uses him very well as a minion. If the film wants to exploit him for comedy, he is the perfect punching bag for the supernatural fantasy.
Miss Charlotte, I can no longer ignore the throbbing of my...
But if the movie needs him to be useful, he can work very effectively as a fake Naveen. Larry has worked with the prince for years, so of course he can pull off mimicking the smug royal in his own way.
Well, when you're next in line for the throne, you're poised like a panther, ready to expect the unexpected.
You can tell that Lawrence is only 70 or 80% on board with the scheme though. This nervous reluctance is what makes him compelling as a minion, whether he's making mistakes out of guilt or panicking over getting caught. It's all down to Facilier to keep Lawrence motivated as his voodoo dummy.
All you got to do is marry Big Daddy's little princess, and we'll be splitting that juicy LaBeouf fortune right down the middle. 60-40, like I said.
Yes.
Without his disguise, he's just an old foolish brat.
Oh, hello, darling.
Benjamin, from The Little Mermaid Ariel's beginning. This chunky manatee is the adorable right-hand assistant to Marina Del Rey, a governess who is conspiring to replace Sebastian's role in the palace. He's a rather quiet fellow, plus way more kind than his grouchy boss.
Come on, girls!
But I need my beauty sleep.
Tell me about it.
It's easy for you. No one cares what you look like, but I'm not even
Move
finished.
it. I think you're lovely.
While he doesn't fit the staple of a Disney minion, he makes for a delightful sidekick for our antagonist. He seems to genuinely love being Marina's assistant. It's like he's Marina's queer-coded best friend. Not interested in scheming with her, but very happy to pamper her after a hard day at work and be her campy voice of reason.
I hate this job. The less said, the better.
To be honest, he's like a way more endearing version of Snoops, shy and timid, but full of lovable personality and himbo charm. It might seem like he's missing a backbone, but he can stand up to Marina when she's in deranged mode.
Give me the key! But she said to never give it to you in a fit of rage.
I'm perfectly calm.
Doesn't sound it.
Heck, I kind of love that once Marina fully embraces her villainy, Benjamin just washes his hands of the situation and bows out. At the end of this film, we see that he's presumably become Marina's prison psychiatrist, which is a job that he unsurprisingly excels at and brings out his more confident side. Good on him, he deserves a happy ending.
That's my girl. Samba?
Horus and Jasper from the 101 Dalmatians movies. Cruella de Vil's henchmen are maybe the earliest example of a classic animated minion duo trope, the lanky crafty fella and the chubby dopey bloke, a cliche that cartoons have tried to replicate for years, but let's be real, Horus and Jasper perfected the formula.
We're here to inspect the wiring and the switches.
We're from the gas company.
Electric.
Eh? Electric company.
I think many folks forget how dark these two really are. Sure, there's humour to their dynamic, but it's a very grave style of comedy. They're like if Laurel and Hardy were played by the Cray twins. Whether they're cracking jokes while invading a family home.
I said you're not coming in here.
Oh, she's a regular little tartar, ain't she, Horace?
Or treating animal abuse like it's another day at work.
I'll pop them on the head. You do the skinning.
Oh, no, you don't, Jasper. I'll pop them off and you do the skinning.
I do quite like how their Cockney Britishness is embedded into them. There's no attempt to Americanise them. They're proper London geezers. Twang, slang and all.
Well, any sign of them?
Not so much as one blooming footprint. And we've been up and down every blinking road in the old county.
There's a slobby approach to their crime, as they spend so much of their shift distracted by the TV that they don't notice that the puppies are being rescued. That's their weakness though, an underestimation of animal intelligence.
Do you suppose they disguise themselves?
Say now, Horace, that's just what they did. Dogs is always painting themselves black.
You idiot!
In the sequel, Patch's London Adventure, Jasper and Horus are much less scary minions. A change that should annoy me, but it doesn't, because it's a rebranding that fits the tone and mood of this sequel. Plus, well, they're funny as cartoony henchmen.
It must be Mum come to spring us. Mum never liked me. Must be good old Dad. Dad never liked you either.
I guess I could criticize them for not learning from their past mistakes, because they're not exactly better prepared or more observant this time round, but that doesn't really matter that much when they're such entertaining goons in this sequel.
Did you see that? Oh, did you see that? He gave me a little kissy. I'm gonna kiss him back. He's having a wobbly.
Janna from the Rescuers Down Under. Janna the Guana is a high-tier Disney minion who has stolen many fans' hearts. For one, she's pretty dang scary. Those wide, demon-esque eyes will make kids jump, and her fast-paced slithering movement always puts me on edge. Some of the most intense scenes in the Rescuers sequel come from Janna's heart-pounding chases after a vulnerable prey. Every predator versus prey conflict being more nail-biting than the last.
The keys, Frank! Give us the keys!
However, she's also a very sympathetic villain sidekick, all because her master, McLeach, is an abusive jerk towards her, only valuing her as a prey catcher or an expendable tool.
Go get him!
No! Please!
The legendary Frank Welker gives her a wonderfully layered voice too. Welker brings a rich batch of character to this creepy but lovable guana, from her intimidating snarling growls to her sad, pitiful moans of fear. As a comic relief, she really steals the movie with the iconic egg scene, a hilarious and expertly timed comedy sequence that cements our villain and minion dynamic, while adding some flavour and texture to McLeach's brainstorming.
The boy won't give me the eagle. If I could just find the boy's weak spot, I could get him to tell me where the eagle is.
Janna really is an unforgettable baddie. You'll feel sorry for her suffering under McLeach's hand 1 second, but then cower for our heroes a moment later. Fidget from the Great Mouse Detective. Ratigan's bat henchman is a strange guy, with his gremlin-esque personality and primitive childlike way of talking. However, these eccentricities delightfully help him to be his own minion.
Get the following. Tools, check. I got tools. Gears, double check. I got gears. Girl? No, didn't get girl.
I'd say his best skill is his adaptability. He's a jack of all trades for Ratigan, who will take on any task thrown his way, always enthusiastic for each job, like collecting items needed for Ratigan's scheme, kidnapping a child, to incentivize Ratigan's hostage inventor, playing a fake royal guard, and even piloting the very blimp that Ratigan escapes on.
Oh, you want to lighten the load. Excellent idea.
Fidget deserves way more credit as a minion, considering how many roles he takes on for the repulsive, power-hungry sewer rat. Heck, he's even useful at being the bait that leads Basil to his capture, the very plot beat that knocks Basil's confidence.
Oh, how could I have been so blind?
Does Fidget make a lot of mistakes? Yep, but that's not a bad thing, because these hiccups work into the story, serving as clues for the smart and observant Basil. If Fidget was a perfect minion, then Basil would not have much to work with as an inspector.
And has been gummed, if I'm not very much in error, by a bat.
Plus, the bat can also make some wins too, especially in the toy store scene, where he makes creative use of the toys to scare and outwit our heroes. Ratigan didn't instruct him to do that, he's just a very imaginative bat. Reuben, from the Lilo and Stitch sequels. In Stitch the movie, the one experiment that Hamsterville gets hold of is 625, only for our villain to be greatly disappointed that he's just a lazy slob who only makes sandwiches. He is not a helpful minion in the slightest. I describe him as a comic relief who happens to be stuck on the villain's side, and there is a lot of comedy potential to the joke of that. I mean, all this chaos is happening around him, yet he just wants to make quips and offer sandwiches.
Last of the baloney.
I don't like baloney. Too fatty.
There's a lot of charm to his laid-backness and cheeky sense of humor too. He's the kind of guy that you just want to hang out with, and he's made all the more endearing thanks to the always lovable comic voice actor Rob Paulsen.
Ham or tuna?
The only big development in this film comes at the movie's end, when 625 and Gantu become roomies on Earth, thus setting up the Lilo and Stitch TV show. Then, in Leroy and Stitch, things really change, as the sitcom dynamic between 625 and Gantu comes to an end, and 625 decides to open his own sandwich shop. He tries to put on this confident bravado, insisting that he's moved on, but you can tell that he's struggling to process the grief of losing his best friend.
From now on, I'm looking out for old number 625.
It's Lilo who really brings 625 into his own though, a kid who has a lot of experience in helping experiments find themselves.
Peanut butter and jelly? Gee, nobody's ever made me a sandwich.
Not only does she christen him with the name of Reuben, but she also inspires him to embrace his powers, which happen to be the exact same as Stitch's. At long last, Reuben has become his best self, and has been granted agency as a character.
I said, are you with me?
I'm with you, sister.
This amazing development goes to terrific use in the film's big finale too. He passes the Aloha spirit onto a freshly fired Gantu, uses his passionate sandwich making skills to slip up some Leroy clones, and plays the sax in the musical takedown of the Leroys. Movingly, things don't end there, because Gantu, who now appreciates Reuben as a friend, hands the job of galley officer to the little fella, a prize that he really truly deserves after becoming a far more motivated and mature hero in this film. Roscoe and DeSoto from Oliver and Company. These two scary-looking Dobermans serve as minions to the sinister loan shark Bill Sikes. Impressively, they're quite suave and confident for henchmen, both carrying the swagger of characters who think that they're the main villains. Although they're not without any insecurity, as they can be pretty sensitive to being mocked, and one is quite the diva when a little kitty scratches him.
Get out of my way.
Their egos are dang fragile for such intimidating dogs.
Hey, you got something to say to me, fat boy?
Much like their master, they have a very dark sense of humour, with other people's suffering or fear being their idea of a comical punchline, which in itself is quite unnerving.
I ain't lost my sense of humor. See? I find that funny.
These are minions who love to seek out fights. Violence is fun to them. Whenever they get a whiff of a chance to start a brawl or cause pain, they express genuine excitement.
You smell that? Yeah. It's party time.
They're less pets for Sykes, and more like his bouncers. While our hero Fagin showers his dogs with love, Sykes just sees his as dumb mutts. That's the thing. Despite their rough treatment, Roscoe and DeSoto are very loyal hench dogs. Maybe because they enjoy the perks of the job. They get to be violent machines who can launch into attack mode whenever their boss clicks his fingers.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! No! Stop, please, Sykes! Please! Sykes, I'm getting your money tonight! It's coming tonight!
When Sykes goes totally nuts in the finale, his dogs are actually able to keep up with him and mirror his chaotic energy, showing an almost fearlessness in their desperate bid to help their boss. And even their final deaths are nearly just as shocking as the way that Sykes goes out himself. The Stabbington Brothers. From Tangled. Disney's gruesome twins are a highly intimidating pair of crooks. Bulked up macho men with fierce, fiery sideburns. Like a lot of twins, they are very close, and only look out for each other.
Play it safe, or go get the crown.
This brotherly bond means that our heroes are running from double trouble. Not even a rolling wild flood can take the duo down.
I'll kill him. I'll kill that rider.
The fact that one lead, Eugene, has backstabbed the brothers means that the twins are both riled up big time. Vengeance is on their plate. But they mainly take things personal because Eugene took away their chances for riches, so really wealth is the root of their motives. Their plot gets extra spicy when our main villain Mother Gothel coerces the two into working for her, turning our twins into official Disney henchmen. The partnership actually inspires the brothers to be at their best, showing that these two are more than just rough and tough thugs, from coming up with an inventive way to frame Eugene in Princess Rapunzel's eyes, to showing a scary ambition to exploit Her Highness's magic hair that makes them just as evil as Gothel herself.
How much do you think someone would pay to stay young and healthy forever?
However, Gothel, just like Flynn, betrays the twins, revealing that their minion work was purely to aid her own narcissistic scheme. So yeah, it's a short-lived henchman and villain dynamic, but said team work in that time, combining brutal strength with cunning manipulation.
We heard you found something. Something much more valuable than a crown. We want her instead.
Extra praise to Disney for using Ron Perlman way better than they ever did in Tarzan 2, letting his gruff menace carry the twins as a serious fairy tale threat.
Now help us out, pretty boy.
Sorry. My hands are full.
What?
Morph from Treasure Planet. This overwhelmingly cute pink blob is a sci-fi twist on pirate parrots. While it does have hints of a parroty personality and the ability to mimic, I would say that he's more like a puppy. There's a frolicky nature to his cheekiness.
Hey, come back here!
I think this playfulness is what endears audiences the most. He's an impish trickster who loves playing games. A minion who isn't taking the treasure hunt that seriously and just sees John as his loving owner. In a change of dynamic though, Morph ends up switching teams. Now scared of his gold-obsessed captain, and more trusting towards his new exciting friend Jim. Like I said, he has no devotion to the treasure hunt, he's just attracted to fun. It's his somewhat neutral role in the main story, and prankster personality, that can lead him to either being an inconvenience or a great help. This can make his place in the film entertainingly unpredictable.
Morphy, come here! Morph, Morph, bring it here. Morph, come here. Come here, boy. Morph over here. Come here, boy, Morph.
For a tiny pink blob, he has a big heart, and he's very brave, so he will sometimes stop goofing about when he sees his friends in danger or stress, like when he turns into a wrench to help John tweak his cyborg parts, or courageously attacks anyone who harms Jim. While he's not the only Disney minion that can transform, he's certainly a very imaginative take on the superpower, with the animators going ham on what the little gooey guy can do as they embrace the unlimited potential of sci-fi fantasy logic.
Morph! Morph, where's the map?
Morph may be a surrogate for the parrot from the Robert Louis Stevenson book, but he's so much more than that. And I'm really glad that Disney made villain John Silver's pet into something far more cosmic and otherworldly, but also stinking adorable. Friends on the Other Side. From The Princess and the Frog, these ominous and otherworldly creatures embody voodoo darkness. While they are amazing at putting on a colourful jazzy spectacle, they're a threat that shouldn't be tangled with. Very little is known about them, but that mystery adds to the creepiness of their part in the film. There's a bizarre abstractness to their very presence, all of them only agreeing to work with our main villain because he's offering them a buffet of free Cajun-flavoured souls.
I'll have the entire city of New Orleans in the palm of my hand. And you'll have all the wayward souls your dark little hearts desire.
As minions, they're very skilled trackers who adapt naturally to the dark of the night. Oh, and despite being shadows, they can grab whatever they need for Facilia. However, let's not forget that they're darkness personified, so of course their weakness is light. Sure, they're creatures of the night, but that does not mean that they can simply evade light sources altogether. In spite of that weakness, they're scary enough to have the suave and smooth Facilia on edge about his plans going well, knowing that a broken deal will mean his end in their hands, making his villain scheme run deeper than a run-of-the-mill rags to riches scam.
Oh my heavens, I'm doomed! Ow!
No, Larry, I'm the one who's doomed.
Technically, Facilia is actually working for these friends. And boy, when these friends come to claim him in the end, it's undeniably disturbing watching this cool as ice villain being forcefully dragged screaming into some kind of hell, all while Disney somehow makes New Orleans jazz sound kinda creepy.
Promise I'll pay your back! I promise!
Nuka from The Lion King 2. Nuka is the son of the deranged Zira, leader of the Outsiders, a pride of lions who are banished for being a Scar cult. He's a very anxious and unhinged minion, who, like his mother, is on the edge of sanity. His lack of mental stability makes sense when he's starved for food, covered in itchy termites, and being raised by the leader of a cult that worships a dead tyrant. While he is supposed to be a servant to a villain, we actually feel sorry for him. There's a sympathy to be felt for a victim of child neglect who lives in an environment that has turned his little brother Kovu into a messiah and casually normalizes toxic evil. Oh, and boy do we pity the suffering that he must feel from all that itching and hunger.
I'm the oldest, I'm the strongest, I'm the smartest. No, these termites!
Despite being the eldest, he's a lot more sensitive and easily scared compared to his siblings. He's deeply insecure himself, all because his mother won't give him the time of day.
Mother, I caught some field mice for your dinner. I left them by the, okay.
And just sees him as a free babysitter rather than an actual son.
You were supposed to be watching him!
Nuka is stuck with no identity of his own as he mindlessly follows his bonkers mother's commands, driven by the tiniest chance of being rewarded with parental pride. Dang, is that pitiful. I've even grown to love Andy Dick's voice for Nuka, from his wickedly crazy laugh to the way he delivers quotable lines.
Roasty toast princess, roasty toasty princess.
This praise is saying a lot because I can't stand Andy Dick in real life. When Kovu bails on the mission to assassinate King Simba, Nuka eagerly leaps at the opportunity to replace his brother's role, his desperation clouding his sense, only to lose his life in the chase, giving us a truly tragic end to a minion who only wanted his mother's love, a scene that's even more crushing when you listen to the full dialogue used in a deleted scene.
I'm sorry, Mother. I tried. Well, I finally got your attention, didn't I?
Yes, Nuka is a rather annoying character, but it's intentional, and once you understand the psychology behind his loud and pedantic personality, you end up realizing that he's actually one of the saddest characters in Disney animation history. Vitani from The Lion King 2. Vitani is the daughter of Zira, and sort of a second-in-command lioness to her mother. As the middle child of the three siblings, she doesn't try to stand out, but rather assimilates herself into her mum's regime. It's clear that Zira wants her kids to be like soldiers and cogs in a war machine, so that's the role that Vitani comfortably slides into, even being happy for Kovu's position of the chosen one. With a fierce leader as a role model for womanhood, she's managed to break gender expectations by being more functional than her anxiety-stricken brother, and just as tough as a highly trained younger brother. I mean, real-life lionesses are the actual badasses of the jungle. She treats the Simba assassination as a serious formal plan for the good of her pride, but she does wear a rich range of emotions on her third, like when she expresses genuine excitement for Kovu's chance to go in for the kill, only for said bloodlust to turn into angry disappointment when Kovu bails. Deeply heartbroken that her brother has betrayed everything that her family has been fighting for. That's the thing, behind her soldier persona, she's very much a family lioness. I mean, when Nuka ends up getting killed, she's sincerely pained by the tragedy, and is allowed to grieve her brother. She's not this stone-cold monster, but rather a loyal daughter and sister trapped in a cult. Heck, when Kiara gets to do a big speech to bring the Outlanders and Pridelanders together, Vitani is the first one to be compelled by a call for peace.
Vitani, now!
No, Mother. Kiara's right.
Most likely because she never saw peace as a viable option, due to her mother's brainwashing, and the stubbornness on both sides. While I do wish that Vitani was given a chance to grieve Zira's eventual death, it's nice that she gets welcomed into a healthier and more loving pride, alongside one of her last surviving family members. Gantu from the Lilo and Stitch sequels. In the first Lilo and Stitch, Gantu wasn't really a villain of any kind, just an antagonist doing his galactic service job. However, Stitch the movie followed up on his firing by showing him getting hired by the evil Dr. Hamsterville. It's actually pretty easy to resonate with Gantu. He's not a malicious or evil alien per se, he's just a victim of recent unemployment who has resorted to being hired by a criminal to keep afloat. So we end up with a likeable himbo minion who we can't help but guiltily root for.
You want it?
Get them back! Get them back!
But the best thing about this change is the hilarious comedic villain and sidekick dynamic that he shares with Hamsterville. It's so funny seeing the ginormous Gantu being mocked and abused by this tiny rodent. Gantu could smash his boss with his bare fist, but he needs to afford rent.
You incompetent fish head of a minion! I'll kick your stinky oversized feet!
I wouldn't even say that Gantu is a bad henchman. He just happens to be working for an egomaniac with a short temper and the inability to give clear instructions. Heck, Stitch the movie lets him show off his best traits, like his intense strength, talents as a war pilot, and ability to see through people.
Is, ping pong ball. Is earth sport, like tennis, but tinier. You're a bad liar, Jumba.
When we get to Leroy and Stitch, Gantu leaves fellow minion Reuben behind to free Hamsterville from jail, also he can stay and work. Once again, Hamsterville fails to appreciate his eager employee, who might make a few mistakes here and there, but can be credited for his aggressive tactics and smart observations.
Sir, I must point out a weak spot in your plan. The little Earth girl has a special talent for turning evil experiments from bad to good.
Unfortunately, Hamsterville wants perfection, which he sees in Leroy, so he cruelly fires Gantu despite his years of loyalty. Now, at rock bottom, Reuben inspires Gantu to turn back good, through the very culture that homed them while they were minions together.
Because you know, the aloha spirit you give always comes back to you. At least that's what Lilo says.
Gantu used to be an honored galactic hero, but his firing made him stop believing in that dream. So it means a lot for his truest and closest friend to validate his heroism as the big guy switches teams with sass and pride.
You never did understand the meaning of aloha, did you?
Well, I think it means...
That was a rhetorical question.
Oh, and dang is it cosmically adorable how he reacts to getting his old job restored after saving the day.
Mr. Gantu, would you be interested in resuming your position as captain of the Galactic Armada?
Would I? I mean, yes, Your Eminence.
Flotsam and Jetsam from The Little Mermaid. These evil eels are the devoted pets of Ursula the Sea Witch. They're some of the creepiest villain sidekicks in Disney's baddie catalogue, with their intense glowing yellow eyes and slimy way of swimming. I especially love how uniquely weird their voices are. They don't sound like typical Disney characters, because their voices have this alien wispiness. It's like hearing demons talk underwater.
I don't understand.
Ursula has great powers.
They're also the best spies that Ursula could ever ask for, all thanks to how their eyes act as security cameras for the Sea Witch. Ursula may be banished to a cave, but these eels become her third eye to the surface.
That was a close one. Too close.
The oyster pearl on top is the fact that these boys are extremely gifted at selling Ursula's service to Ariel. They act as cunning salesmen as soon as Ariel is alone and vulnerable, right after she's just been traumatized by her father, mind you, as they hype up the Sea Witch's shady business without ever coming off as too desperate.
Don't be scared. We represent someone who can help you. Someone who can make all your dreams come true.
They're not just sly creatures though, they're also incredibly physical foes for our heroes too, using their wriggly bodies to silence Ariel's friends during Ursula's deal, tip Eric's boat over to stop a romantic kiss, and terrifyingly drag Eric underwater to potentially drown him. The duo get a pretty sudden and shocking death by Trident in the end, which is when we get to see Ursula at her most angry. They've been her only friend since her banishment, and her cherished house pets, so it makes sense that their deaths would send her utterly mad. For a movie that mostly takes place on land, Disney actually managed to wring some decent use out of these two devils, all while giving them chilling, memorable presences as minions. Shenzi, Banzai and Ed from The Lion King. This iconic trio are often a name that come up whenever someone mentions Disney minions, and for good reason too. The three of them are like a bunch of naughty siblings, stuck together as a ragtag family, but getting by on a shared wicked sense of humour.
Man, I hate lions. So pushy and hairy and stinky, and man, are they ugly.
Plus, to be fair, they're quite intimidating from the perspective of a cub. They are a big reason why Simba's experience in the elfin graveyard is bound to scare very small kids. Constantly starved in the Shadowlands, this laughing trio are desperate for food security, and the cunning twisted Scar takes advantage of their painful hunger, using false promises to con them into undying loyalty.
Stick with me, and you'll never go hungry again!
thus creating a Nazi-esque cult who mindlessly follow a rare glimmer of hope in their cold, empty lives, as they all surrender their will to a fascist who only cares about himself. Due to their new dark commitment, Shenzi, Banzai and Ed, already very cruel hyenas, end up becoming key players in Scar's conspiracy to kill King Mufasa.
There he is. Let's go.
They're not just Scar's goofy comedic sidekicks, only here to make us giggle. They are half responsible for the death of a king, the severe traumatization of a child, and the rise of an evil tyrant. Without these hyenas' help, Scar would be still whining in a cave somewhere. Once Scar's regime takes off though, the hyenas face the harsh consequences of trusting a narcissist to save them. Their brutal crimes now seeming needless in hindsight, when Scar's kingdom is no less famine than their home before.
There's no food, no water.
Yeah, it's dinner time, and we ain't got no stinking entrees.
However, whenever someone realizes that they're in a cult, they become less scared of the charismatic personality that tricked them. So, with the curtains down and the false promises of fed stomachs exposed, it is very unsurprising that the starving and betrayed hyenas decide to quench their hunger with meat from the very leader that lured them into their pretend utopia, giving us one of the grimmest ends to a villain ever.
You don't understand. No, I didn't mean... No, I mean my hands, may I? Oh, no.
Pain and Panic from Hercules. If you asked me to pick my favourite of the snivelling sidekicks in Disney's Minion library, I'd easily go straight for this underworld duo. Seeing as their boss becomes a literal volcano at the slightest sign of failure, it makes total sense that the two are constantly nervous and shy. Heck, in spite of being little imps, they're quite possibly some of Disney's most human-like characters. Anxiety-stricken office workers who just want to please their boss, but also yearn for fun. Come on, we've all been there.
Thirsty?
They're also wonderfully funny. These zany and quotable comic reliefs, who, despite sharing the screen with an iconic Disney baddie, often get their own shot in the spotlight, giving us sound bites, catchy chants, and hilarious catchphrases that have gone down in 90s pop culture history.
Hades is gonna kill us when he finds out what happened.
You mean, if he finds out?
Of course he's gonna
If is good.
Pain and Panic are yet another example of minions that can transform too. These transformations can give them the confidence that they often need. I really love how these powers are cleverly utilised in our villain scheme. Quite a lot of our villain's plan requires the boys to be hidden spies or believable human disguises that blend into grease. Heck, when there's a guy that Meg can't seduce, Pain and Panic will take one for the team.
Gotcha!
Pain and Panic not only deserve their reputation as fan favourites, but I also see them as worthy companions to a beloved Disney rogue. Anastasia from the Cinderella trilogy. Now, Anastasia is not any less toxic than Drizella in the first Cinderella film. They shared the blame for a lot of the abuse that Cinder's faces in their house. But once again, it's very important to remember that she's the result of bad parenting on Tremaine's part. However, Cinderella 2 explored Anastasia's other side, a soulful yearning for a real, compassionate romance, the kind that Cinders and the Prince have, a dream that seems unreachable to a daughter raised to be a mum's key to nobility.
Cinderella's ball is tomorrow night, so pay attention! Every noble bachelor in the kingdom will be there.
This fantasy comes to life though, when she falls head over heels for a humble baker, the very symbol of the working class that Tremaine resents. Luckily, Cinderella steps in to play matchmaker, while also standing her ground regarding her stepfamily's abuse.
What would you know? You're beautiful. It's always been easy for you.
Easy? That's not how I remember it.
There's a sympathetic tragedy to the psychology of how Anastasia's brain ticks, because Tremaine's venomous oppression and control has given Anastasia scars and fears that make her self-doubt and self-hate to intense levels.
There, good as new. Don't stop now! Mother says that looks count for everything.
Thankfully, with Cinder's support, Anastasia comes to embrace a passionate crush on the gentle himbo baker, giving us a couple that breaks Disney's stereotypical romantic pairings, and a happy ending for one of Tremaine's abuse victims.
You're wrong. He's sweet.
She's wonderful.
He's romantic. And we are going to the ball together.
Well, I say that, But then Cinderella 3 came out, and Baker Stasia suddenly got retconned. Yeah, it's sad, it's frustrating, but I understand why. Anastasia needed to be single in order for the film to work.
Get ready. This is your second chance. Don't waste it.
The thing is too, Cinderella 3 does stay true to Anastasia's true love dreams. In fact, this very desire becomes her weakness, something for Tremaine to use to keep her daughter on board as a minion.
You do want the prince to love you, don't you?
Open up! Well, yes, of course I do. More than anything.
Anastasia ends up facing internal turmoil over her sidekick role, as she ponders the morality of stealing Cinder's life, how authentic the prince's feelings are while he's under a spell, and what true love really means.
You knew that just by touching her hand?
There's no more powerful force in the world than true love.
Fortunately, after much contemplation and guilty shame, Anastasia comes to her senses and helps Cinders expose their mum's scheme. I've always loved that Anastasia never ends up with anyone by the end for the sake of it. Instead, she's learned to respect other people's true love and has become closer than ever to her stepsister. Her happy ending is finding her self-worth, and that's sincerely beautiful.
I don't deserve this.
Everyone deserves true love.
Iago from the Aladdin movies. Jafar's chatterbox parrot is a wisecracking bird who refuses to be just another cowering subservient to a villain. You could even argue that he's on an equal level with Jafar, with the two conspiring together as a team. Not only is he open to mocking or criticizing Jafar's plans,
Kazim was obviously less than worthy.
Oh, there's a big surprise!
but he's also cunning and crafty enough to pitch his very own ideas whenever Jafar is stumped or at a crossroads.
Okay, you marry the princess, alright? And you become the sultan.
Although Iago may be Jafar's partner, but he faces just as much humiliation and strife as any other put-upon minion. He is, after all, a comic relief. Every painful slapstick or degrading gag elevated by Will Finn's A++ expressive animal animation. Let's be frank though, it's the hoarse and loud comedian Gilbert Gottfried that carries Iago's appeal. Gilbert's naturally squawky voice was made to be the sound of an annoying parrot sidekick, and he turns every line on paper into premium luxury comedy.
We will never bow to you!
Why am I not surprised?
While Iago does end up trapped in a lamp with Jafar by the film's end, the return of Jafar marked his comeback. This sequel might have been an Aladdin tale, but honestly, Iago's arc stole the film. Sure, it's debatable whether Iago even deserves a redemption, but it's still really compelling watching the parrot dance between his personal ego as a wannabe crook.
I gotta get back into the palace! Back into power.
Fearful loyalty to a powerful genie Jafar.
I'm arranging a little surprise for Aladdin, and your job is to lead him to the party.
You know, I don't think I'm the guy for this job.
And growing fondness for his new wholesome friends.
This isn't easy for me to say, but I was wrong about you.
Iago's growth isn't sudden or rushed. It's an up and down swing of morality, with the parrot switching sides on a whim, all while the good-hearted genie serves as the bird's willing conscience.
We have to get Belle and the princess back together.
Look, I definitely don't do mushy stuff. It's not me!
Whenever Iago does perform the right thing, he actually goes all in as a hero. It's so commendable how much he doesn't give up. You could argue that he works harder as a hero than he ever did as a villain. From here on out, Iago became an official sidekick to Aladdin, bringing a snarky wit to his future adventures. Before I reveal my number one pick, feel free to subscribe to my channel for more fun animation related content. Thanks folks! Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove. Hands up if you disagree with this legend being at number one. I thought so. Kronk is the definitive Disney minion, a quotable himbo who is treasured dearly by Disney fans everywhere.
Oh, right. The poison for Cusco. The poison chosen specially to kill Cusco. Cusco's poison.
Unlike a lot of other dumb comedy minions, his lack of intelligence isn't obnoxious or grating. It's actually kinda charming, because all of his mistakes or hiccups are often due to him being too excited or naive, like he's a big puppy.
This isn't poison. This is extract of llama.
Heck, I wouldn't even call him traditionally stupid. He does have a lot of emotional intellect, being someone who will think deeply about the moral ethics of his tasks before ever committing to them.
What'd I miss?
Well, Yzma just tossed me this knife and asked me to, take them out. And then this guy popped up, and then we waited for you.
And when he's not some vegetable brain zombie, he can do some things right from time to time.
He must have taken him back to his village, so if we find the village, we find him, and if we find him, we find Cusco. Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
His low intelligence also doesn't define who he is either. Ditzness is just one aspect of his rounded character. He's also a fantastic symbol of positive masculinity, who can connect with wildlife very naturally, bond with kids like a fun uncle, make casual chit-chat with anyone he meets, and most notably, cook amazing delicious food with a passion, going as far as to adapt quickly when suddenly asked to take over as a diner chef.
You got all that, honey?
3 oinkers wearing pants, plate of hot air, basket of grandma's breakfast, and changed the bull to a gill. Got it.
Even though he's a physical Adonis, he doesn't let his chiseled appearance go to his head. If anything, he's quite humble, and healthily enjoys embracing his more feminine side as a man. The dynamic he shares with Yzma is delightfully hilarious, with Kronk's childlike energy routinely conflicting with the diva sorcerers.
Pull the lever, Kronk.
But at the same time, the two have this endearing grandmother and grandson kind of bond.
How about dessert?
Well, I suppose there's time for dessert.
And coffee?
All right, a quick cup of coffee.
Kronk is so hilarious and lovable that as an audience, we end up really wanting him to leave Yzma. Because let's be real, he deserves to be so much more than just a hunky henchman. Luckily, he eventually stands up to his mean boss and becomes the very hero that defeats her.
I win.
Whoa.
Once out of the henchman business, he gets to embrace all of the talents he's exhibited throughout the film as actual careers. And not a single cell in my brain thinks that he hasn't earned his dream life. 3 cheers to Kronk, the best Disney minion ever. Consider next checking out my other villain ranking videos. I've made enough to keep you entertained for hours. I've been Jambareeqi, cheerio folks.